We back. We're here on Patreon again. Last time we were here, we were looking at mudae, and we were looking at the benefits that the mudae Patreon would get you, and if it was worth it. Now, Patreon is a little bit different because the benefits are pretty simple, really. But the question of whether they're worth it or not is maybe a little more complicated. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Equivalent video, but this time for Overgod. So I'll start the same as I did last time. Let's just go through the Patreon levels. We've got one for each rarity on the bot. Well, there's not a fabled one, but I quite like that. I like that they've done that. So congrats Scuttler for making cool Patreon page. But anyway, Patreon is a pretty big thing in OO, and this is probably something you've come across. Whereas Premium mudae is kind of just small benefits, the Patreon in OO is an entirely different thing. So let's have a look at it. Common, which is £1 a month for me anyway. I don't know what currency you might have, but this gives you access to Patreon exclusive animals. Now this is pretty important, if I go and have a look over at my Discord, you can see Patreon animals here. Oh, apparently I sold my zoo recently. I have one Patreon animal back from when Patreon gems existed, and there's Patreon animals are here, but there's a lot more than just these 5, because these are the normal Patreon animals. These are pretty common, and like I say, there's 5 of them. These are the ones you could get with Patreon gems. However, there's also a shiny Patreon tier that's meant to be below this if you have Patreon. Disclaimer, I don't. That's why I don't have the animals. I've never had Patreon on an Overbot. But the point is, then you get loads of custom animals. And if you see someone with a huge zoo, chances are they probably got a lot of Patreon animals, and that'll be where they come from. So this is what the commentary is getting you. Simply the ability to catch these animals. You get them from hunts. I'm assuming you get them from HuntBot as well. I hear that the shiny Patreon ones are pretty rare. But not insanely rare, maybe, I don't know, let's say as rare as a legendary, something like that. I honestly can't remember exactly. But the other thing is some of them are pretty good because there's so many custom Patreon pets that they all have different stats, or at least reasonably different stats. So some of them are quite good, but we'll be talking about that in a minute. So let's go back to here. We've done common. What about uncommon? What else do you get? Doubled currency and for dailies and votes. This is not huge. If you saw the video we did recently on money per hour, then you saw that the dailies and the votes did not really give much in comparison with simply hunting. So personally, I wouldn't say that one is really worth it, just because your dailies and your votes don't get you that much. But that's not to say that it's nothing, and as we also discovered, if you had been voting every day since the system was implemented, you would have something like 8 million currency. So if you wanted to do that and go insane with it, theoretically, this would get you an extra 8 million. But realistically, probably not. So, personally, I don't think this is worth a huge amount. But if you value your dailies and your votes a lot more highly than I do, then fair enough. Here, custom role in our Discord. Again, personally, I don't think that's really worth it. You're paying now 8 times the amount as common, and personally, I'm not active in their Discord anyway. I'm sure if you're thinking about buying Patreon, you probably are active in the official Discord. There's some good stuff going on there, and it's a pretty nice community, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, custom role in the Discord is not huge. I also imagine there's probably a lot of people with this from the higher tiers, because you do still get that. So then, let's go down to the big ones. Now we're getting into custom pets. So this is the shiny pets I mentioned that you get from common, and of course uncommon and rare as well. This is where they come from. People make these, they're all custom. Back when the Patreon pets were first added, there weren't so many custom pets to get. But now, of course, there's hundreds of them, because every time someone gets this epic Patreon, another one gets added, theoretically. And some of them are really cool, honestly. Some of them are really nice pets. I like them. But yes, you can add your own one. I assume it says any custom pet as long as it's appropriate, but I assume you just have to pick a GIF or something like that. pick a name and a description. If you do on Orodex, you can see the kind of thing that we're talking about, because I can do, I don't know, Orodex, or we can do the Patreon animal that I've got. So you will have the little description, we have the name, of course we have the actual image as well. So yeah, I assume this is the stuff that you would be creating if you made a custom pet, and because a lot of people have made custom pets, there's a lot of these around the place. Not these ones, mind, these are the regular Patreon pets. Again, there's a shiny tier below that. So yes, then we get Mythic. This is starting to get proper expensive now, but you know, it's Patreon. It's about supporting the bot, not just getting the benefits. So it makes sense. And then what we get here is a customized command. Alter an existing command of your choice. So I'm pretty sure the kind of examples that I've seen with this is like making your hunt bot have a cool design, or making your zoo have a cool design, or something like that, potentially. It might also have to do with if there's a maybe adding GIFs into one of the action commands or something like that, potentially. You know, something along those lines. As it says, editing an existing command. I think it's that kind of thing. I'm not 100% sure, honestly. Obviously, I don't have it. And I'm sure there's more information on the official Discord, as it says here. But it's pretty cool. It's a big flex if you got something like that. And that is probably something that not too many people have got. But if you're putting that much, what you can also do is go all the way for the legendary one, which is the highest, which gets you an actual custom command rather than customized command. Notice the difference. This is where you change your current command. This is where you add a new command. If you look at some of the commands in Orobot, let me give an example here. Let's say Oro1, right? That's a command. I haven't actually used it before, as you can tell, because it's kind of pointless. But there's a lot of little things like this, where it just, a lot of counters and stuff like that. A lot of simple commands that don't actually do anything. They've just been added into the bot. And I'm pretty sure this kind of thing is exactly what the legendary Patreon is. I've seen quite a few of them. I think there's like a like war battle thing or something where you gather troops, something like that. And there's run, and there's a bunch of them. I always forget what they are, but they're pretty fun. And I'm pretty sure what you're doing with legendary is creating those things. So that's pretty cool. However, what is actually the benefit of these benefits, shall we say? Because what you are probably most interested in is the Patreon exclusive animals. Honestly, in my opinion, that is the biggest bit of getting Patreon. As much as making my own custom pet would be nice, if I was to buy Patreon, I would be tempted to get the epic one. But common is going to give you access to those extra animals, and that is what a lot of people want. Now, obviously, I do not have any examples to give here because I don't have Patreon. But give me a minute and I will go find one. Right, I went to the official server, searched for a random Orodex, and I found a couple of Patreon pets. Easy! So we have here Hello Kitty and Kagura. As you can see, pretty much any gift you like by the looks of it, I assume. Some of them been caught considerably less than others, as you can imagine. This one's from July 2019, and this one's from July 2021. Big difference there. But they still get caught sometimes, obviously. And of course, the more of them there are, the lower chance of you getting a certain one. Because the percentage chance of you getting any given Patreon pet depends on how many total Patreon pets there are. Makes sense. But as you can see, they all have different stats. The stats are not bad, for sure, but it depends, obviously. What would I say about these two? I don't know. Probably this one would work as an okay magic attacker, and this would work as a okay support. I don't know. Neither of them are hugely great from my perspective, anyway. But that's, I guess, what I would say about them. And of course, the point with these is that since there is so many with so many different stats, it doesn't really matter what stats these two have, because there will be eventually a Patreon pet with the good stats, which is why if you try and find the people on the top of the streak leaderboards, they always use Patreon pets. That's not to say necessarily that Patreon pets are the best. For example, Slothbot, I think, is generally considered the best tank in the game. That includes the Patreon pets, because he has more stats than the Patreon pets, I imagine. But with so many Patreon pets, there will be some that are really good tanks, really good supports, whatever. And if you have Patreon, using them in your team is a bit of a flex. Another point is that Patreon is not the only method of getting Patreon animals, because if we go down here to the official OO server, we can see the ticket market where people buy and sell tickets. Now basically each one ticket is worth about £1 or dollar or whatever the currency is that they're in, and they sell for I think about 850,000 currency, although it seems the price has gone up since I last looked. It looks like it's around 900,000 now, so that's nice. Well, debatably nice. And basically, when you use a ticket, it will give you, I think, for about a month, access to Patreon animals. So you can get the normal ones, you can get the shiny ones. Obviously, they're pretty rare, like I said, but if you hunt often, you'll get some, and it's good stuff, just for 30 days. Now, if you think about it, this £1 is basically the same as just donating to Patreon. So what's the difference, you may ask? The difference is because you can buy them for in-game currency. So it's kind of a method of giving common Patreon to other people, right? Because it is the equivalent of common Patreon. And because in the OOBot terms of service, you're not allowed to trade outside bot stuff for inside bot stuff, then that normally wouldn't be allowed, but tickets makes it allowed. So you can buy these tickets from the OOBot store. I think you used to be able to buy them from Scutler directly, but that's probably not a thing anymore. And then you can come on here and sell them to boost your currency, or you can use them to get Patreon animals. If you're buying them and using them yourself, it seems kind of pointless in my opinion, because you could just buy Patreon, but you do you. And then the point is, if you want to buy one of these tickets, you know, without spending your money on Patreon, you can spend your OO currency on it instead, and then still get the Patreon animals. Now this is pretty cool. Personally, I don't delve in it because I value my OO currency more than the Patreon animals, so I never bother buying any of them. OO currency is the only thing I've got in the bot, I might as well keep it. But equally, I don't want to be spending my real life money on the bot, so I don't sell them either. Hence, tickets don't really have anything to do with me. But if you spent, like, you know, 500 quid buying tickets and selling them, you could probably get in the top 5 of the money leaderboard, you know, so that's kind of broken, I guess. And if you feel like doing that and proving the system is just screwed, then feel free, I won't stop you. I do think it's a bit messed up, but you know. But the point is, Patreon pets are pretty useful. Also consider that they sell reasonably well. I mean, these Patreon pets only sell for 1,000, but I'm pretty sure the shiny Patreon pets sell for a lot more than that. Is it even 10,000? Something like that? I don't know. I honestly don't have a clue. I can't remember. But they sell reasonably as well. And as we saw from the money video the other day, the percentage chance of getting a common pet reduces by about 0.5% just from having Patreon. That may not sound like a lot, but the fact that it's noticeable simply from percentage chance of getting the Patreon pets shows that it is worth having. So yeah, the Patreon pets are good for battling, they're good for selling. Just generally, they are fun to own, as much as I do not have personal experience with owning them. Some of them do look really nice. You might even find your favourite anime character as a Patreon pet one day. Who knows? A lot of Discord emotes become Patreon pets. If you know the Rainbow Head Bob here, I've seen this as a Patreon pet quite a few times. So, you know, that's fun. I would certainly enjoy owning that as an OO pet. I don't know whether it's good in battle or not, but who really cares, eh? But yeah, I think you get the point. There's a lot of good Patreon pets, and if you look at the top of the leaderboards, there is certainly a correlation between people that are high ranked and people that have Patreon. And I'll tell you what, all the people that are high ranked, they all got Patreon. So yeah, there is a correlation there. But do not think that Patreon is just going to give you all the epic pets, because it won't. It doesn't make that much of a difference. It's very similar to mudae in the sense that as much as the Patreon is good and it's useful and just generally is really cool, I really find the Owo Patreon is really cool. The stuff that you can do, like I said at the start of the video, is very well designed, but it's not going to give you an insane advantage in the bot or anything like that. So only spend your money on it if you actually want the stuff that's in it. Don't spend your money on it simply because you want the good pets, because it's not going to happen. But yeah, I think we'll end that one here. I think I've gone through everything. So, all good. Bye!